morning. Welcome back to Health Chat. My name is Stephanie Rushing.
I'm Amy Cripps.
And we're so excited that you've decided to join. This is episode 2, and we've come together and started to discuss for women, by women, items of concern that relate to our health and our families.
We've had a lot of great input from our first episode, and we've had a lot of people who are interested in submitting topics, which I think is great,
yes.
And also being on the show with us. So we're super excited to bring you a very wide variety of topics.
If you didn't catch the first episode, go on YouTube.
Yes, it's still not searchable, but we'll get there.
YouTube, podcasts, and we just go over kind of general topics and an introduction of who we are, what our background is, and what our intent and purpose is of Health Chat. But today we're going to be talking about something very specific, very interesting.
Yes.
I think we all struggle with this as mothers. And that
super
is
challenging. Super challenging.
So it's going to be about work-life balance.
Yep. And there's a lot of different terms: work-life balance, work-life integration, and those terms, are sort of up and coming. So we'll talk about some of those too.
Okay. New vocabulary words.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Integration. That's another one. Work-life integration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I was just doing some research about work-life balance, and I wanted to kind of ask you, because there was this article in the Washington Post, and this was in 2014.
Let's remind them first what we do.
Oh, you want to go over introductions?
Yeah, just a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay. My name is Stephanie, and I'm a dietitian by trade. Also have my master's in exercise physiology, so I did a little bit of fitness consulting on the side.
And what are you doing for work right now?
Well, that's a loaded
Influx,
question.
yeah.
That's a
Influx.
loaded question because I have a practice and I see patients mostly in relation to eating disorder treatment. That's my background, my specialty. But yes, in flux. I've been back and forth as far as what my work-life balance is looking like.
So we know, that the women that are watching, it's sort of a huge range, right? So stay-at-home moms, women who work part-time, which is what I do, women who work full-time, women who have very high-powered careers, and then women who are trying to decide what to do. And a lot of us kind of have small children, and so as our children are getting older, things change, what the family needs are changed. So I work part-time, 3 days a week, and a weekend here and there, and have been back to work in that kind of setting ever since Olivia was, I guess, 15 months old or so. And she's 7 now, if you remember that. And then Stephanie's got a 7-year-old daughter as well. And
One
she's
child.
done a lot of different things over those 7 years to try to
Mainly
figure this
just
out.
teaching fitness classes at the Y because of the free childcare, by the way.
Very
It
important.
really worked out.
Good way to get your workout in.
Because I will tell you, free childcare, I was able to work and actually not make a lot of money, but at least the money I made, I didn't spend in childcare.
Yeah. So that's
And that's the big thing that I've found, I guess at least going back into the workforce and being an employee, is the amount of money that I can make doesn't justify me working to pay for childcare.
Right. And I can't stay at home because my earning potential is too high.
It's greater.
Not that I make that much because I work part-time, but the potential is greater.
And it does justify.
It does. Yeah, it does.
So we're both coming from completely different perspectives and situations.
Yeah.
When we talk about work-life balance.
So tell us about the study.
Okay, so this is super interesting. I guess in 2014, Pew Research took a survey from Americans, and basically what it found is what Americans think working mothers should be doing is in complete opposition to where we are as women in the workforce.
Oh, it makes so much sense.
So, let me pull it up one more time. So most Americans think mothers shouldn't work full-time, but the reality is far from different. Okay, so here's some statistics I wrote down. 75% of mothers with children between the ages of 6 and 17 were working or actively looking for work, which is, I feel like, where I'm at. My daughter's 7, she's in school, and I feel like I need to go back to work in order to contribute to the family income. But yet there's still challenges there because even though she's in school, she gets out
Right.
at a time that doesn't accommodate my work day.
Yeah.
Okay. Among those working, 77% worked full time,
Wow.
and 40% of women with children under the age of 18 are also primary breadwinners in their families. So that's probably mostly single mothers, but there is still a substantial share of married women.
Well, thank goodness. I mean, I'm glad that women are breadwinners, you know. I'm glad I don't have that responsibility, but I'm glad a lot of women are able to do that.
Right.
I mean, this kind of leads me to think of what I feel like our generation was taught as we grow up, right?
Yeah.
Which is that some of us had moms who worked. Your mom did, right?
She was a teacher.
My mom was too. And some of us had moms who stayed home. And I feel like the message we got from both of those types of moms was that we could do everything.
Yeah.
And I grew up with the idea that I could accomplish whatever I set out to do.
Right.
Which
The
I did.
American dream,
The American
in
dream.
a way.
And I think it's great. But the huge disservice that was done to us, which I hope we can change for our daughters, is that you actually can't have it all the time. So there's been several
That's
female...
a good way to think about it. You can't have it all the time.
Yeah. So there's been several female CEOs that have been quoted as saying, I can be a wife, I can be a mother, I can be, executive or employee, but I can't be all of those things at the same time. So that's where the idea of balance comes in, is that you're sort of, doing one thing and something else.
And see, as women, I think, and this is why I think men have an easier time. I think they can compartmentalize.
Yeah.
When I'm, as a woman, I can't compartmentalize like, okay, this is my mother mode.
Right.
Now I'm in wife mode. Now I'm in working mode.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And that might just be my personality.
No, I think most of us are multitaskers, right? And that's why we are successful in running a family.
Right.
It's just like running a business. You're doing multiple things all at the same time.
Right.
So I think it's important now for us to start realizing that we probably do have to compartmentalize a little bit more, and we probably have to really be constantly prioritizing and figuring out what's the best use of our time.
Right.
And how we can get other people to help us.
One thing, I will say the article, even though it really emphasized the need for women to stay home with their children, most Americans thought that was really important. It also mentioned that it wouldn't turn back time into really promoting women to be in that traditional role of staying home. So again,
what does it look like then?
well, and that's why I think I had such a hard time, and I had, over the holidays, my little story of trying to go back to work. So my husband decided he wanted to borrow some money, and I'm always very like, I want to pay cash for everything, and we'll get into finance topics at another episode.
But tell him what you were borrowing money for, because it's a worthwhile
It's legit.
cause. Yeah.
Okay, so he wants to borrow money to put in a pool, which is a luxury.
We live in Texas.
We live in Texas and it's hot. But I wanted to pay off that loan within a short amount of time. I don't like to have any debt. And so I decided, okay, I'm gonna have to go back to work. So of course I start looking, I'm applying for jobs. This is right in the middle of December, right before the holidays. I find a position, interviewed, they're in some crisis mode, which should have been a red flag, really looking back. But immediate needs, so I go to work. I miss my daughter's Christmas party, but my husband was there, so we had to start sharing some of those responsibilities.
Which is good.
My mother-in-law helped out to pick her up from school a couple of days a week. But that's the other thing, like, do you use family to help out with childcare? I didn't want to go that route long term.
Because you've done that before.
I did that before after I first had my baby, and it served its purpose early on, but I didn't want to again do it long term.
Yeah.
I want to be with my daughter. I want to raise my daughter. So, so anyway, I went back to work, and I think I worked 32 to 35 hours a week over the holidays, and I only lasted 2 weeks.
Because
Well, several things.
yeah, probably didn't
One,
get too specific.
I hadn't worked in a while, but I had to start working Christmas. Like, I worked Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And I think it was the first Christmas Eve I didn't spend with my extended family in 40 years, which was hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had to come back and work holidays. Two, my childcare, kind of a childcare / tutor that I had wanted to put into place wasn't going to work out. So
I quit. Like, you totally completely
and
quit.
by the way, though, this position was supposed to be a temporary position anyway.
Okay.
So they knew that I wasn't in for the long haul.
Yeah. Okay.
So I felt, that it was okay to kind of let them know, all right, I hope I bought you some more time
Yeah.
to find another dietitian to fill that spot, but I'm not it.
Yeah.
But it was a taste of what going back into the workforce was like.
Well, and I'm also proud of you, right? For not
Really?
just sticking through something that you knew, like, instinctually wasn't the right thing for you and your family. Because most of us are people pleasers and would just stick it out because we said we would do it, so we're going to continue to do it.
But there's something to be said for that. My sister was in the same position with kids. She's an attorney, and she's like, you taught me integrity.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to maintain.
I remember when I was in medical school, actually, the first year I was in, our class was like 49% women, 51% men.
Yeah.
And then after that, it pretty much has been even since then. And I remember a senior physician, male,
Yes.
at one point saying to me that the reason he didn't think there should be so many women in medical school is because if that continued to happen, eventually there would be a physician shortage. Because we're either out of
Women quit.
maternity leave, women work part-time, women quit, and I have known that to happen. I've known men in medicine who quit too. And I think, it's like what your sister was saying that she was taught. You feel that in the back of your mind, a little bit of guilt. This is 20-something, almost 20 years ago,
Yeah.
and I have never forgotten that.
Well, and I think what one of my friends, with the way we were raised and our education and our background, the money spent,
Yeah.
yes, providing our education and career ladder, is we now have as women the option to work. And that was really the goal.
Yeah. Yes.
The goal is not for all of us to all of a sudden need to be in the workforce.
Right. Right.
But let's say something happened to our husbands, we would be able to have the option to go back into the workforce to provide for our families.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I saw that firsthand because my dad actually died at a young age, and my mom still had 2 children at home and had to provide for them, which she was able to do because she had a career.
Right.
And so of course, that sticks with you, and I was in college at the time, and I knew I was going to do medicine anyway, but I knew that I wanted a career where I could provide for my family if I ever needed to, God forbid. And then I wouldn't be reliant on a husband like a lot of our grandmothers and other women of that generation were. So I think that's important. I think it's that part of the message is a great thing to continue
Being
to teach our
independent,
daughters.
self-sufficient.
Absolutely.
That's important.
But what are the trade-offs?
Yes.
Right?
You probably have more experience with the trade-offs than I do.
Well, you mentioned one of them. You spend less time with your daughter when you're at work, right? And I feel
Which
the same
is
way.
less influence, which really, really gets my goat.
Yes, and I feel the same way. So the reason I work part-time is because I do want to spend time at home with my children. So that works out for our family. I'm able to do that. I feel very fortunate in that. I hope that that never changes. My husband and actually my business partner assumed that once the kids were in school, I'd start working full time. But what I've realized, but what I've realized is you're busy when they're in school too, right? There's Christmas parties to go to.
Oh, there's
And
early
other
release.
things.
It was early release. It was
Days
always
off.
something.
There's always something. Yeah, there's always something. So, our childcare, we're also very fortunate because we have a nanny. So our children are in our home, and we've had the same one for coming on 6 years now. And
Right.
so she has a lot of similar values than we do. At the same time, what I really see her role is, and the role, like if you take your children to preschool or daycare is as well, is childcare. Right, they're not actually raising your children because they're not teaching you them values. They're not the family time that we spend together. I mean, we're pretty much home every single night for dinner,
Right, which is helpful.
So we do have a
You
lot
have that
of
family time in the evening.
very focused, very important family time, and that's a sacrifice for both Michael and I to get home. But it's a sacrifice we really want to make, and so. Anyway, all of that just to say everyone's situation is very different, but I also feel that as my kids get older, that there is some benefit to me working, not just for the family income and to use that degree that I got, but in some ways I feel like my job is a calling, which I'm sure you felt that way too.
True.
And to be able to give back to people is really important to me.
Right.
So it's interesting, all through my medical training, all through residency, which is the clinical part of what you do after you graduate from medical school, nobody talked about this. Not one person.
Well, they don't talk about money in school either.
No,
and
they
half of, maybe even more than America, doesn't know how to manage money.
No, and for us, they don't talk about how to manage a business, which is what medicine is, right? And
True.
for you too.
And my husband talks about that all the time. He doesn't want to send my daughter to college. He wants her to be an entrepreneur and just figure out business.
Well, whatever her generation is going to be called, that's what millennials are doing, and so it's not unreasonable.
Because and I don't know about you and your family and your husband, but we are employees.
Yeah.
So we are subject
we all are. Yeah.
to a higher standard, schedule, whatever it may be. And that's where we kind of find that we would like things to be different. But that's our chosen field.
For her to have more flexibility, you mean, and
especially if you're going to be a working mother.
Right. So the first time this was ever addressed was when I was a fellow, which is the training you do to become an oncologist or a specialist. And there was a panel of women, and this was like I forget, noontime or after work kind of extra session that you could go to that the university had. There was a panel of women, and this is what they were talking about, work-life balance.
Oh, okay.
And so there was a surgeon on there, and there was an internal medicine doctor. Anyway, it was all women who, at an academic center, had very, pretty high-powered academic careers, right? Worked full-time, spent a lot of time on their careers. And at the time, I thought that's what I wanted to do. But the most important things that I got out of that discussion were that you need to have a village, which, we are...
So funny that you're talking about this.
Yeah.
'Cause I have my own opinion on the village.
Oh, interesting.
So,
Okay.
So tell me what you think.
Well, so, it takes a village, right?
You've always heard that.
Yeah, to raise children. And in cultures before, your village was your extended family.
Oh my gosh, my dog. Come here.
Chloe, what do you need?
Chloe, come. Oh gosh, I was gonna show her on the camera how
she's
cute
shy.
she is.
She's camera shy. So it used to be that your mother, your grandmother, your aunts, and actually that's how I grew up because we were all close
join
together.
us
Hi,
today.
Chloe.
She can sit. She'll sit.
So now we don't always have that because we don't always live near our nuclear family. And so then you build your own village, which for me has been, moms at school. Thank you for helping out.
True.
My nanny, our church is part of that village, and our neighbors. So that's what our village is. So that was important. And then the second thing they said was to pay or hire out everything that you could. So there's all these jobs.
If you're not making any money working, you can't do that.
Fair enough. But this is for moms who work, right?
That are making enough money
that are
to
making
afford
enough money
that.
to afford that. So their examples were, which we have now even more than we did at that time, grocery delivery, right?
I did that for the second time
and
ever. I have mixed feelings about it.
I think it's awesome. Now, I like going to the grocery store, so I do it sometimes when I can. But I don't think it requires me to do it,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely convenient.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know if I mentioned this on the last episode. I'm like the last person in the free world that doesn't use Amazon. I just don't have delivery.
You are the last.
I think there's value in taking your child to the grocery store and teaching them about food and money.
Totally. I totally agree with
But
that.
if you're a working mom like you are, I agree.
Yeah.
Gotta have that.
So Josh
Technology certainly makes it easier for working mothers to be able to do more.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other thing they talked about, so in San Francisco, parking was a huge issue. And so they talked about actually spending the money to buy the parking garage pass, which I feel like was, $250 a month. I mean, it was not cheap.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us, the way we would get around it is like we'd park in the neighborhood and walk there, or we didn't have Uber at the time, but you could, Uber in. Those things would be less expensive, but more time consuming. So their point of it was save time, not necessarily money, no, but really use your time for what, number one, you want to do, and number one, kind of what your skill set is, So, anyway, so those are the two things that have stuck with me for many, many years. And, I use a lot of Amazon, but I do go to the grocery store sometimes too, because I like doing it and I like taking Joshua.
It's just so funny because you're able to be in a position where you work, but you outsource. My husband and I were going to make a TV show called Outsource.
Yeah.
Because parents don't, I mean, I'm not putting this on you, but like parents will hire someone to teach their kid to ride a bike.
All of our friends have done that. All of our friends.
Okay, that is not within our family value system.
Right.
We want to be with our kid and teach them how to, but it's time saving and you have the money to spend.
Yeah.
I would rather not work.
Right. And
teach my child to ride a bike, stay here in the kitchen and cook with her or whatever it might be. Again, I don't probably make enough to justify that trade-off.
Yeah. And that is a big part of it.
You're outsourcing so much. Or you could go completely minimalistic like me, not work, and eat rice and beans and rice. Which is kind of the mode I'm in.
So the way I look at outsourcing, though, is again, I pay other people or, spend money. I mean, the groceries cost the same, right?
No, but there's an upcharge.
No.
Yes!
All right, maybe that's it. But
a little bit.
You're not,
it's
you're not
using, terribly high.
You're not using coupons. You're not comparing prices if you're not the one doing it. That's true. But I then use that time to spend time with my kids.
Because you don't have other time.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, so on my days off, instead of.
But let me ask you this, because this brings another thought. When you're spending time with your kids, what are you doing? Are you going to Six Flags? And are y'all doing kind of event type?
I think
going to the zoo or the museum.
We do probably 50% of that, and then 50% is like playing at home, doing projects at home, reading books. We're starting to play board games together, watch movies together. Yeah, exactly.
Because I feel like when you spend time, a lot of, and maybe this is just the area that we live in. Yeah. A lot of parents, when they do have time with the kids, they're taking them to the Cowboys game. Or they're doing big time events. And I think that there's value in, let's say, going to the grocery store with your child in the mundane things of life. I think there's a lot of over the top time spent with their children, and children don't want that. I don't think.
What do you think? I'm just, devil's excuse me, devil's advocate here, but what do you think's spurring that on? Is it the guilt?
I don't know, you may know better than me because you're working and I'm not.
Yeah.
But I can't afford to do those things. Like, I kind of wonder if we could afford to do those things, would I?
Yeah.
Would I?
Yeah.
And I think it depends on the age of your kid. I do think, like, at 3, she doesn't need to go to Six Flags or,
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
she was happy with us just being present.
Oh, I mean, we took him to the library. We
Library
did go to the
programs,
zoo,
I'm
but
still doing that.
yeah.
Zoo, yes, but just some of the stuff that I see parents doing with their kids, big time vacations.
Well, there are certain kids who I think really like that,
And that's their thing.
That's
But
their
it may be
thing.
their thing because that's their parents' thing.
Right.
And their parents enjoy that too.
But there are other
That's
people
true.
who like the quiet, the stillness. That's what I like. Olivia really flourishes on that. And so I think part of that is kind of tapering it to what your family needs. And there are some
True.
families who like to go and do all the time. I'll be honest, if we lived in a place where we could be outdoors more often,
Oh yeah.
we totally would,
Well,
you
let's
know,
just-
hiking.
You know, I want to move to my private island and just live.
Are you going to have to get a job to do that though?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, because we're gonna live off the wilderness.
Oh, okay.
We're self-sufficient. We'll be
Uh-huh.
picking berries.
Hippie commune, is that what we're talking about?
But I'm not even that hippie. That's kind
No,
of
you're
the
not, you're not.
funny
But
thing.
I could see you doing it though. I could see.
And
you doing
here's why. So you said earlier it takes the village.
Yeah, tell me about the village.
So I have another friend. She has 3 children.
Okay.
We think a lot alike.
Mhm.
Her and her husband say, "Get your village away from my children,"
Oh, so interesting.
because this culture and these people
Yeah.
and the village
Yeah.
is not in agreement. Like even the school,
Huh.
they're doing things or playing things or showing things that are not my values.
Got it. Yeah.
And so this community, if you can really pick and choose your village,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what? It's easier if I just do it myself. And that's basically what it boils down to. My personality is
Yeah.
if I just do it myself.
Well, and I think, okay, there's a lot of coordination, you know, and I mentioned before that, there are, managing a family is still like managing a corporation, right? And when you work or do anything outside of the home, you're always having to figure out, you know, where are the kids going to be?
Oh my gosh.
What
But
if-
here's the thing. When I went back to work for 2 weeks, I had to think like that. Why don't the men think like that? Why is it on us? Why wouldn't my husband be like, Stephanie's working. Where's LG gonna be after school Wednesday and Thursday? Who's gonna take her to ballet? The thought does not cross their mind because we take care of
because
it.
we've always done it. Yeah, I think and there
They'll-
are some
they'll
families.
do it if we ask. I
Yeah.
mean, they're very
Mhm.
great, you know.
And there's some families who I feel like are set up differently, and so there may be men that take a more active role in those kind of decisions. Ours just haven't needed to.
They haven't needed to, but I've enjoyed being in that role,
Yeah.
not working. But now I'm feeling the pressure to go back to work.
Yeah, so what's the answer?
Move to a private
I think the other message is that as soon as you think you find kind of balance, integration, the CEO of Amazon talks about it, that it really should be more of kind of a circular thing.
Is
so
the
that,
CEO Jeff?
yeah.
Well, he's a boy. You can't say anything. I will agree that once you figure something out, it changes.
It changes.
You know,
It
and is
changes.
that what you were getting at?
Well, yeah, I mean, and you're right, but he says there should be harmony, there should be more integration. I think he probably is the one that coined that term. I think it's great to strive for that. What I would say is at any one moment you may have that, and then in the next moment you may not, you know.
See, and I'm the kind of person that I like is just nice, even kill. I don't want to shake things up too much.
Well, and that's probably why, you know, you have less anxiety than I do.
Well, and I will say, so my mom, even though she's a teacher, so she had similar hours and she was off on summers, because that's a whole nother,
Huge, yeah.
I told her I was going back to work and trying to do all this. She's like, now you know I was a crazy idiot all the time. And because they were trying to do it all.
That's right.
They were stressed. So what she would say, what's that medication that makes you relax? Not Prozac.
Xanax or
No,
Ativan.
no. I can't remember, but I will let you know because I think that is going to be key. You're going to have to go on the medication in order to like chill, or at least I would.
Well, okay, so here's another way to do it, and I think another huge thing
Without being
that we should
medicated.
talk about is how do you take care of yourself so that you do remain sane when you're taking care of everybody else, when you're working.
Here's the other thing, I thought I was going to go back to work and I was going to make all this money and have all this time to go get my hair blown out, and like I had never had time. I had less time
Yes.
working to even spend the money on myself.
Yeah. But it's also because you didn't have childcare, right? Was that part of the reason why? So you were like rushing
I think I
home.
would feel, and that's what my husband says is when women go get their Botox, there's a nanny at home
Yeah.
taking care of their children. And I don't know, like fundamentally in my gut, I just.
So
can't
for
do that.
years, I have had a lot of guilt about that, and I would take care of myself, like in the little pockets where I could, where, you know,
Right.
both kids were, I don't know, because Josh has just started preschool, but say Friday mornings, they're both in school. So
Right.
that was the time of self-care for myself, this little tiny package
spot.
of time. Right now, because the kids are in church and I'm here, right? So little tiny packets of time. I would say in the last week or two, I have started to realize that that is not enough time. So Michael was at work yesterday. I mean, that's the other thing is he's gone a lot on the weekends when I could use
Y'all are both
him
very busy.
for childcare. So I paid a babysitter, for an hour so that I could go to yoga in the morning.
I know.
It changed the whole day.
So did you feel by doing that you were more available, more present,
Totally
in a
was.
better mood?
In a better mood, physically felt better.
Yeah.
And I think it's imperative as women that we do whatever it takes to take care of ourselves. Now, I'm not, 6 hours a day taking care of myself and having someone else take care of my child, right? That's not the situation that I'm in. But whatever pockets, and I'm hoping to extend those a little bit that I can do, I think it's worthwhile and it's beneficial to my family if
And
I'm
you're
taking
also,
care of
like,
myself.
you're going to Costa Rica, you're doing vacations.
Family, a girls' vacation.
A girls' trip.
Yeah, no family.
I don't do girls' trip because I have no money.
Well, and so we do them, I would say once a year, about average, and that's huge.
That's a big deal.
That's huge. And so I would love for my husband and I to take more vacations together, but again, there's not really anyone to watch our
That's
children for us to do that.
I'm just kidding.
Girls trips are very fun. So yeah, I mean, sitting on the beach for 6 days is going to recharge me for some amount of time,
Yeah.
and so that is, a way of taking care of myself. And my husband will have to step up more, and the nanny's going to have to work more hours, and that's just part of it.
So very different lifestyles, but
Yes.
both worthy of
Yeah, I think everyone's
whatever
family,
you decide to pursue.
Yeah, I think everyone's family is, as long as it's intentional and as long as you're doing it on purpose, you're doing it right for your family.
Right, I would agree.
And Olivia, let me just say about this trip, Olivia, my 7-year-old, was disappointed that she doesn't get to go. But the message that I'm teaching her is that mommy's going to take care of myself because that's important to do.
Right.
And when I come back, I'll be more here for you, and at some point we will take a family vacation together.
I think that is important because in my line of work, there's a lot of girls and a lot of women that struggle with take care of self.
That's absolutely right.
And so then they, they start acting on these risky behaviors.
And then depression, anxiety sets in, all those things.
So that is a big message. But mine is just a morning run.
Yeah.
And she don't want to be left alone. And I'm like,
But she knows that you're doing it, right?
she
You
knows
told
I'm
her.
doing it. Oh yeah, it's not like I'm sneaking
No.
out the door.
But I mean, and you told her why you're doing it.
I have. I've
Yeah.
told her this is the way mommy takes care of ourselves. Or like, the other thing we need to start thinking about is I want my husband and I to be able to go on a walk and leave her here because my husband and I need to connect.
Yes.
And that's a priority.
Yeah. I mean, we're very intentional. I used to feel guilty about, date night because again, they're, with a nanny so much during the week, and so I feel guilty going out on the weekends. But now our message to them is, Mommy and Daddy need to spend time together. This is how we reconnect. This is what's good for our family too. So I think it's really important, especially for girls and boys too, I'm sure, to make sure that we're very intentional about giving them those messages, not just like sneaking out the door and making them feel left behind, but actually saying, this is why we're doing this. Because if we do that, I think they will grow up with a different work-life balance, integration, and
fingers crossed.
Let's not even say work-life balance, let's just say life balance, right? Because if you're not working, then how do you balance taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of all the other things?
I sit at home because I have no money to do it. And I cook rice and beans. No, I'm just kidding. I do work a little. Just not to the extent that I have a lot of extra income to spend, I guess.
They're not poor, believe me.
All right. Thank you.
See you next time.